Week 3 is here in the NBA. It's Fantasy Basketball Week 3, coincidentally. And as Ice Spice once sung about Greg Popovich and his information regarding Devin Vassell's injury, Boy's a Liar, Part 2. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Just a quick reminder, for Sunday, there is an early game. There was an early game Saturday, a very early game Saturday. There is an early game on Sunday as well. I believe it is a 3 p.m. Eastern start. For those of us here in Australia, shout out to you blokes, that means it's a different time because American Daylight Saving finishes tomorrow, I believe. So that will be a 7 a.m. game for us. Instead of what it would have been last week was 6 a.m. But you don't need to know that. What you need to know is it's a 3 p.m. Eastern start, which is a 7 a.m. start for us in Australia. Adjust your other time zones as need be. We are heading into week 3, and I will give you the forewarning I have already on many shows this week. This is a stinker. This is a terribly scheduled week. It is a week where streaming is not as viable. I mean, it's still viable, but you can't actually take gigantic advantage of it. And how do we approach that? Then we'll talk about it a bit later, but it's more about, let's just target single days, but also we can have more of a long-term view because we're not sacrificing as much on the streaming front this week, considering how hard it is going to be to do. So let's get in and talk about this abomination of a week 3 schedule. Just quickly, what did you guys, and I know what you thought, what did you guys think of the in-season tournament from yesterday, the courts, the uniforms? I loved it, but I know most people hate it. Most people hate change or they complain about their eyes. I get that. I had no problem with my eyes whatsoever. I had no problem tracking the ball or seeing anything. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it looked great, and I thought the games were all super competitive. That first game, especially Indiana-Cleveland, well, the others were great too, but the crowd was so hyped up into it. Whether the in-season tournament means anything for the winner, I don't know. But it was, I thought, an excellent start to this concept, which I was not particularly, I didn't think it was anything that was needed, but I think it's been executed pretty well, but I know that you're going to hate it. I know that people are going to hate the courts and I can't see what's going on. And bro, okay, I could see it. I can't put myself in everybody else's eyes. So yeah, that's my take on it. Let's look at week 3. Yeah, week 3 in the NBA. We've got a weird week again. Out of the first 3 weeks of the season, we've got 2 of them that only have 6 days worth of NBA action, which is a little frustrating. Let's see how it all plays out. We've got a ridiculous 12 games on Monday, 0 games on Tuesday, which I believe is for election day, but maybe I'm wrong. What elections are on? Do you guys just have an election every single year? I know it's not a presidential election. What's actually happening? Why is this happening every year? I thought they would take this Thursday. I know why they take the Tuesday off. I thought they would just take it off when there's actually the presidential election, but apparently not. So I don't know what elections are going on. I'm not that enmeshed in American political culture to know what's happening. I just know that there's 0 games on Tuesday. So, of course, that means we have to go absolutely batshit crazy on every other day. Well, not every other day. The 2 surrounding it. 14 games on Wednesday. That is honestly, that's ridiculous. That recap show, that is going to be a very, very long boy. And, of course, we've got 2 games Thursday. Why would you? Why wouldn't you put 7 and 7? I don't know. Well, even that, it's 16 games across 2 days. Maybe we could go 8 and 8. I don't know. Friday, we've got 9. Saturday, we've got 4. And Sunday, a big Sunday. We don't normally get these big Sundays during NFL season either. 11 games on Sunday. So 3 double-digit game days for week 3. And that is why I say that this is a stinkingly bad schedule for fantasy basketball. So there are a bunch of teams playing 4 games. You can see them all up on the screen in alphabetical order. Boston, Brooklyn, Dallas, Detroit, the Warriors, the Rockets, the Pacers, Clippers, Lakers, Heat, Bucks, Wolves, Pelicans, Thunder, Sixers, Spurs, and Wizards. So that is 6, 12, 17 of the 30 teams, despite having only 6 days of action during the week. 17 of those teams play 4 games. That's a little bit more than I anticipate. Usually you get a little bit of a lower load in games played, and there is slightly lower because I would guess the usual is 20 teams play 4 games, but we're at 17 for this week. In terms of 3-game teams, we've got the Hawks, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, another opportunity to lose 3 more games. The Knicks, the Magic, the Suns, the Kings, and the Jazz. So we've got 10 teams playing 3 games, and those of you with a calculator handy would be able to see that that means there are 3 teams playing 2 games. A lot of 2-game weeks to begin this season. The Cavs, the Blazers, and the Raptors. Now, the Cavs had a really good schedule in week 2. It's obviously not as good this week. And the Blazers and the Raptors looking a little bit stinky with that 2-game schedule. We never like a 2-game schedule. And we have changed a few things up on this weekly preview show also, so be aware of that at the end as we cover a few more little different things that some people have been asking for. So, if we look at quality games for the week, there's not many because during the week, there's only 3 days which would qualify as a quality game day. And Friday is borderline. I always use the cutoff as 9 games. Anything above 9 is not a quality game. 9 and below is. And Friday's got 9. So we're looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday as the 3 quality game days. Of course, Tuesday is a quality game day because there's fewer than 9 games. The problem is that no bloody team plays. So that doesn't count. So we've only got the 3 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So early in the week, first 3 days, nothing. Can't do nothing with streaming. You can plan, you can stash, you can do any of that stuff. You can't stream. Well, in most cases, you can't stream. There are 4 teams only that have 2 quality games. Boston, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Orlando. We'll talk about Milwaukee's schedule a little bit more in detail later on. But 4 teams have 2 quality games. So when we are attacking streamers, well, not that Boston has a huge amount of them, but when we look at Milwaukee, maybe it's Malik Beasley or Jay Crowder or Bobby Portis. And Atlanta, it's Sadiq Bey. There's not much else there. Obviously, a Kongwu Johnson, these guys should be rostered anyway. Hunter should be rostered at this point. Orlando is probably the interesting one with Wendell Carter out, with Marco Fultz dealing with an issue, Gary Harris dealing with an issue. So Anthony, Suggs, Mo Wagner, John Isaac maybe. They're the only teams with the 2 quality games. But there are 4 teams that have 0 quality games. So if you are considering, maybe I'll try an Alex Caruso for the Bulls, or Torrey Craig's now starting over Pat Williams, and Williams look better off the bench. Maybe we stream them in. Well, you can't really use them because they don't play on any of the low volume days. Same goes for the Nuggets. So if you're looking at what Christian Brown was doing, maybe you don't want to look at it. What about for the Knicks? Josh Hart started with Barrett out, but if you're adding him and then Barrett returns, you probably don't use Hart at all for the week. Same with DiVincenzo. Same with Grimes. Honestly, same with Quickly, who's just not playing enough. And the Blazers as well. We love what we're seeing from Toumani Camara. Big minutes, started the second half over Matisse Thybulle. And if you take a crack at that, you take a flyer on it, you'll play him 0 games next week. Yeah, Brogdon, Sharp, different story. But these sort of players like Thybulle, like Skylar Mays in deeper leagues, like Toumani Camara, you're just probably not going to have, obviously with the Blazers, they have only 2 games anyway. You're just not going to have that opportunity to use these players, which makes it relatively pointless in a lot of cases to grab them and add them onto your roster. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, theatre events near you. Near you. That's important because it will give you these flash deals of something happening near you. You go, hey, this is happening. Cheap deal tonight. You want to go? And you go, that's a good idea. So you jump in the Game Time app, you have a look at all the pricing, and it's there. And one of the other features they've got is their all-in pricing. So when you go to see the price for an event, you click on it and you don't get smacked with a 20% processing fee or a 10% transaction fee or a 3%, we just feel like it fee. It's all there. The price is just there. You see it, you click on it. What you see is what you pay, which is honestly a breath of fresh air versus how other ticketing apps work. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets on Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Okay. Let's move into the next part of the show because we've talked about the quality games, and let's talk about streaming because, as I said, it is just not going to be as viable or as useful or as beneficial maybe to stream this week. We don't have a real set plan of like grab this guy here and then transition to this and you get 6 ads, 6 games for four ads. It just doesn't work that way. We've only got the 3 days worth streaming, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're 3 days back-to-back, so no team is going to play 3 games across those 3 days. There's no Thursday, Friday back-to-back to make it even worse in terms of streaming. So it's not like you even add a guy and get 2 there. So the only back-to-back we've got across the 3 streaming days is Boston with a Friday, Saturday back-to-back. And the only guy who might even be available in standard leagues is Al Horford. He's going to sit one of those games. What that might do is it might make in one of these games Sam Hauser or Luke Cornett worthy of a stream, but bloody hell, like that's sort of where we sit. Realistically, most leagues are going to have 4 ads for the week. Now, this always happens to me, and I think it's not to call out anyone in particular because I don't remember anyone's name that said these to me, but also it's very clear or very key to remember that your league settings are not universal usually. So there will be people who throw a comment, man, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you talk about it this way? And then you go, okay, well, that's just not how it works. Oh, well, my league only allows pickups on 2 days during the week. Okay, but that's not how everyone runs things. In fact, that's how the majority don't run things. So I think when you're thinking about asking a question or approaching a pickup in your league, or whether a guy's an ad or a drop, your league settings, and we stress this all the time, it's one of the first things I say when we restart a new season of fantasy basketball, understand your league settings, but also understand how your league settings differ from everything else. If you're in a league where you've got 40 transactions you can make for the season, streaming's not for you. If you're in a situation where you can only make 2 ads for the week, and you can only do them on Mondays and Thursday, well, that's a different approach for what you've got to do. If you're in a league where you have 5 starters and 10 bench, well, again, it is a very different process. So I think always understanding what standard is and then how your league differs from standard is quite key when not even asking questions, but throwing comments out or assessing the information that's provided. I can't provide information for every single sort of format or every single sort of scenario, but there are a lot of different ways that people do it. Also, just quick side note, there's no perfect point scoring system. So don't be like, oh, how should I make this better? Just do what you do. Just keep the default, I think, is the best way to go, honestly. I don't really see why we'd need to muck around with it. It just complicates things further. But that's all beside the point here. So in terms of streaming, it's just not a great week to do it. So we had the best player on each day, the best Thursday guy, the best Friday guy, the best Saturday guy. But like I said earlier in the show, this gives you an opportunity to stash. It gives you an opportunity to hold. It gives you an opportunity to see how things play out. Not happy with how Xavier T. Illman has performed? Bit worried that he went to the bench? Yeah, I am. Even though he performed better on the bench than he had starting, and he still can't hit a single shot. And I wouldn't say that the David Roddy starting experience worked well, considering they lost to Portland. But what am I to say? But it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to hold through that. Let's see how that works. Let's see before you panic and drop DeAnthony Melton, who's shooting 27% from the field. Let's just wait and see. You don't need to sacrifice roster spots for this week because you're not getting a gigantic gain out of streaming. This is a stash week. It's maybe a great week to stash Keontae George. I'll keep throwing it out there. Not for everybody. But it's just this week in general enables you a little bit of extra time to hold on to the guys underperforming. The first 3 days of the week, you probably don't even have to use those players. And you get a few more data points in. It gives you more time to speculate on guys. Maybe you want to take a flyer on Marcus Sasser. Do you think he's going to overtake Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey and be a 30-minute a night starter? I think it's doubtful when Morris and Burks and Bogdanovic come back, but they're not. But this gives you time to assess that. And that is, I think, when we talk about this week, with weird schedules, you might cop an L because of this stuff, and because your game's played a less than your opponent, and it's harder to make it up. But use it to your advantage to not make rash decisions, to try and assess the value of players, to try and wait on a couple of things, or to take some longer term flyers that might pay attention or might pay off actually heading into future weeks. I think that is probably the right way of approaching this. let's look at some schedule quirks. And yeah, it's quirky. The Kings and the Jazz don't play on the weekend. That's important. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is probably going to be back by that time. So if you did have Davion Mitchell, if you did add Malik Monk or tried Kevin Huerter, well, the end of next week, we don't need those guys. You're not an ideal scenario when you're looking at Colin Sexton or Horton Tucker or even George, if you are looking specifically to win this week. And then we look at, there are 3 teams who have a 3-day break in the middle. Chicago, Denver, and Portland. Now, unfortunately for these 3 teams, they have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off, the only streaming days available for the week. So Chicago, Denver, Portland do not play on those days. That stinks. All those days are off. And then, I think I've missed a team there. There's another team that might have that 3-day break as well. Let me just double check that. Yeah, there is. Sorry, my bad. It was the Knicks. Yeah, the 3 teams that I said had no quality games. So there's 4 teams there that don't play Thursday through Saturday, which we already discussed earlier on the show. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 bonus bets if your team wins. That's it. You just pick who wins. And if you win it, $150 goes into your account in bonus bets. And then you can go and use those bonus bets on parlays, on over-unders, on spreads, on futures, on player props. It's all over there on FanDuel. You just got to hit that moneyline bet for $5 to begin things. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, that will bring us now into some more schedule stuff, of course, because that's what we're doing. We're looking at week 3. Let's look at the teams that play 3 games in 4 nights. Now, for a lot of the situation here, this doesn't matter a huge amount for fantasy because realistically, our number one thing in terms of streaming is going to be looking at quality games. But in terms of drop-off in production, potential rest spots, this is worth looking at. So there are a few teams that have 3 and 4 game sets this week. To begin the week, Sunday through to Wednesday, Dallas, Denver, Golden State, and the Spurs go Sunday through Wednesday, 3 games in 4 nights. A little red flaggy there for maybe Luka with 3 games in 4 nights. Maybe Steph, definitely Clay, maybe Draymond, maybe Chris Paul with the Warriors. So there might be a 1-day opportunity for some of these players. The Spurs, what do they do with Wembanyama across a 3 and 4 situation? By the way, again, I referenced it early in the show, but Greg Popovich talking about Devin Vassell's groin injury. Yeah, he's going to be out a while. Looks like he's not. He's doubtful for their next game, which is Sunday, and then he's day-to-day. So either the doubtful designation's a lie, or Greg Popovich is out for a while is a lie. We don't know. And it leads back into that conundrum. If you ignore what a coach says, and it turns out they were right, well, you're foolish because you literally got told it to your face. If you believe what a coach said, and they turned out to be lying, well, you're an idiot because coaches always lie. It's a really tough thing to try and thread that needle through. And was lucky? I don't know. I didn't really see a must-add guy with Vassell out because I thought they'd start Branham, and it wouldn't necessarily mean there'd be a must-add guy, but it's sometimes we take chances on these things and they don't work out. Shout out to old mate Day'Ron Sharpe. I was very wrong on that, and that happens. We just try to make the best of whatever situation we've got. The Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks play 3 games in 4 nights, Monday through Thursday. Now, obviously, Tuesday is off, but they play 3 and 4 nights. The Pacers don't really worry me too much there. The Bucks do. Obviously, Chris Middleton's going to sit one of those games. But how does Giannis look 3 games in 4 nights? Does he sit one? He played through their first back-to-back, but 3 and 4 is a little bit different. And then Wednesday through Saturday, Boston and Milwaukee play 3 and 4. And what is important there is you'll note, Milwaukee, a 3 and 4 and a 3 and 4, meaning they play 4 games in 6 nights. That is a very loaded schedule for the Bucks, and so they go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. That may mean that Thursday game, or even the Wednesday game for Giannis is in jeopardy. Now, I guess Thursday they wouldn't because they'd be in the resting rules on a nationally televised game. But 4 games, 6 nights, 2, 3, and 4 sets there for the Bucks must raise some level of red flag for availability. It's not an ideal schedule. What about any teams with 4 and 6? Well, I already said that Milwaukee's got the 4 and 6 Monday through Saturday. Boston's also got 4 and 6 Monday through Saturday. So you worry about Horford there. Everyone else should be okay. And then starting Sunday, because we haven't played Sunday's games yet, and that leads into increased load giggity through the week. Dallas and Detroit, Sunday through Friday, 4 games in 6 nights. No one has a 4 and 5, but these guys have a 4 and 6. So you worry about Kyrie, you worry about Luka and 4 and 6. The Pistons, maybe a slight worry with Cade. I don't think so. He's been playing through all the way through, but 4 and 6 does lead to a level of just watch if there's a decrease in performance or there becomes a load issue with playing so many games in so few days. Back-to-backs. Not that many. Sunday heading into Monday. Now, you can get an advantage most weeks by looking at a Sunday, Monday back-to-back, but with 12 games on Monday, you're not probably going to play the guy. But let's talk about it. Dallas and Detroit, the Warriors and the Spurs have a Sunday, Monday back-to-back. We look at the Warriors for Curry, for Draymond, for Paul. We look at the Spurs for Wembanyama and what they're going to do with him. Or sorry, as Reggie Miller would call him, Wembanyama. The Kyrie and Luka thing for Dallas, and for the Pistons, again, not really worried to there. Wednesday, Thursday, which is 14 games into 2. Sick. It is Indiana and Milwaukee. Again, nationally televised games on the Thursday, meaning you're probably not at risk there, but the Bucks with that bad schedule, watch on Wednesday. Friday, Saturday is the Celtics with a back-to-back, the only back-to-back across the quality game days. Al Horford's going to sit, guarantee you that. And then the weekend back-to-backs, it is the Warriors also. You'll notice, Warriors Sunday, Monday, Warriors Saturday, Sunday. 2 back-to-backs in this 8-day period. And the Miami Heat, so Jimmy Butler's at risk, and Steph and Draymond and Paul are at risk on that back-to-back as well. So, in a 9-category league ad, these guys are all available in 50% of leagues, and I think they're all going to be guys that you could add and could start for the week. In a lot of cases, you will. One of them is Josh Richardson. Is he going to blow you away? No, but a 4-game accumulation week. Maybe he's at risk of sitting the weekend back-to-back. That's possible. But 4 games, 30 minutes a night, 28 minutes a night, 120 minutes of action for the week. It's probably enough to roll the dice there. Dylan Brooks has been shooting unbelievably, and it is going to come back. But he might play 35 a night for 4 games. That's enough, in some cases, to take a crack. Old mate Jeremy Sohan, 4 games for the week. Don't think there's any risk of sitting. He's looked better in the last game. Vassell might miss one of them, which helps his overall value. Really good opportunity to use him, I think, for the week. Christian Wood with 4 games as well. Vanderbilt is still out. Hachimura's in concussion protocol. Torian Prince has a knee injury. Wood is playing much better. The 4 games leans in his favor as well. And same with Derek Lively the second. Now, there's going to be some weird games from Lively. There'll be a 35-minute one, and then there'll be a 10-minute one because of foul trouble. But in general, it looks like old mate Kidd is wanting to get Lively more minutes than we might have thought that he would lean into early on, which is always a good scenario. For points leagues, it's the same sort of plays. So I'm going to add Bones Highland there over Derek Lively. Yes, Bones could get really squished with Harden arriving, but they do have 4 games, and maybe he gets 20 minutes a night, mainly because Terrence Mann is likely out for the whole week. Now, if Mann did play, I wouldn't think that Bones would be an option, but with Mann out, that probably does float Bones' value for the week. With the 4, the other guys I got there are Josh Richardson, Dylan Brooks, Jeremy Sohan, and of course the crucifix, Christian Wood. Lastly, we look at the teams that play 2 games. There's Cleveland, there's Portland, and there's Toronto. The only real guy, with the way that the schedule is and the majority leaning 4 games, the only guy that I say is an automatic start is Don Mitchell. So on Portland, Shaedon Sharp's been playing really well. I don't think he's going to be a start. That is a blanket statement. I don't think Garland or Mobley or Allen starts in Cleveland. Obviously, Strus isn't either. The debatable one there is Scotty Barnes, who's been playing really, really well. He's on the border for me. So if you just believe that he's going to keep up his insane level of play, which is totally reasonable, he might do that. I was way off on his projections, obviously, and I am bringing them up, but I can't quite get to the level he's at the moment. But if you believe that he's going to be closer to those numbers that I do, then he probably is a start. When I project him out for the week, I think he's like 128th, which I want to use 120 cutoff, and Mitchell was like 117 or something along those lines, right? But if you believe that Barnes is going to produce higher than that, then he is startable. But Anunoby's not, and Pirtle's not, and Siakam would get close-ish in points leagues, but probably not either because he stinks at the moment too. So the only guy that I really lock in as a starter is Don Mitchell, and Barnes just a little bit behind there in that group of guys that you might start with 2 games on. And that will do it for the Week 3 preview. Leave your comments down below. I'm throwing that in early because I normally do it at the end. I'm going to throw it in now. Leave comments below. Subscribe, notification bell. And if you are listening on audio, well, if you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're doing, but do it now. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on Spotify, but on YouTube. We really want to hit all those little key things. Get the numbers really pumping up. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.